You can't see them, you can't smell them, but they're everywhere. Very small, dangerous dust particles in the air. Some of them come from nature, like pollen or volcanic ash, and some come from human activity, like road traffic, industry and heating. World Health Organization and EU data say that in a year in Europe alone, more than 300,000 people die prematurely from breathing these fine substances into their bodies. Belgium is one of the countries affected the most. Also the Netherlands, Germany, the north of Italy, Eastern Europe. Established 2 years ago, EU rules fix limits that may not be exceeded for periods of more than 35 days. But many cities can't manage to respect this. So they're accorded exemptions. The directive is being revised, however. Holger Kramer drew up the proposal. He wants short-term measures avoided.
The daily limits are not nearly as important as those taken over a year. Recent studies tell us that the daily concentrations depend strongly on the weather, and we can't fight them with short-term measures. Since that's the case, the Parliament decided by a large majority that we have to become more flexible with the daily values. At the same time, we decided, and environmental groups tend not to take note of this, we want stricter annual values.
Kramer says the EU should have begun at the source of the problem, with cars and industrial equipment, which could be cleaner, and then define the accepted limits. The Parliament wants to add another 20 days to the tolerance maximum. On the other hand, the total annual allowance would be reduced from 40 to 33 micrograms per cubic meter. This would be from 2010. Brussels sometimes registers more than 100. The size of the particles is another point for debate. The MEPs want smaller particles taken into account, those considered the most dangerous, known as PM 2.5, right down to 0.1. Again, the proposed target is 2010. But regions where geography and weather are mitigating factors would be given more time to comply. That's not good enough for the Greens.
It's shifting the legislation norms coming into force to the next decade. And the new part of the legislation for the PM 2.5 smaller air pollution particles, that's twice as high as in California. And in California they are already in force. In Europe they will only come into force in the next decade. This is really outrageous. The scientific evidence shows this is a huge health problem.
People with asthma feel the worst in the heaviest pollution times, autumn and winter. That's when pneumoallergy doctors such as Olivier Michel see the most patients. Nicanor Calvo Carbaleda has been seeking specialist help for years.
In winter, when I feel I just can't, I just try to avoid going out. Those are the times I feel the most pressure, as if my chest is being squeezed. I feel it directly when the air isn't good. It's like there's a weight on my chest.
In some countries, citizens have even sued cities over fine particles. Scientists say particulate matter is one of the causes of allergies and lung and heart disease. Smoking is the most common cause, yet the most harmful are ultrafine particles. They can cut an estimated 3 to 36 months off life expectancy, depending on location.
It appears that ultrafine particles can actually pass through organs. This means they're not restricted to responsibility for either skin or respiratory passage illnesses, but also general sickness, since they will penetrate so deeply into the circulation system and therefore the blood. They're sent all around the body.
This reference includes heart attacks and cancer. Euro MP Peter Olachos is aware of the problem from living and working in Brussels and his hometown Budapest, which are both very polluted.
I support the general idea of a stronger clean air policy for Europe, but its legislation is already very strong, and we have to take the new member states into account because the problems stem from the past. They can't meet the criteria. They lack a problem-solving strategy. We have to give them time to create one.
A Polish MEP broke down the numbers during a plenary debate in the Parliament.
According to Polish Environment Ministry figures, we would have to invest 50 billion zloty to respect the directive's demands. The social and economic costs would rise significantly. A rise in the cost of living for the poorest people would cancel out any benefits derived from a better air quality.
The countries having the most trouble respecting the limits are the loudest asking for a reprieve. The European Environment Bureau's Kerstin Meyer condemns that thinking.
The law's main problem is longer delays. Towns and countries that haven't done their duty shouldn't be rewarded with deadline extensions.
What do the ecologists say should be done?
It's important that everybody take off the gloves and put some muscle into fighting particulate matter. We need effective measures, speed limits, environmental zones, diesel filters.
European Greens speak highly of the English city of Bristol. It took action early. To get trucks out of the centre, the town council organised. Deliveries are pooled. Merchandise is consolidated at a logistical centre, and all of it is put into one truck for distribution. Environmental managers were hired, and traffic planners. They run campaigns to guide citizens into greener transport habits. Private car sharing in Bristol is coordinated through a central internet site. That's how Stephanie Wetherell picks up company to go to work.
I first started to do it because of try to reduce the environmental impact of driving to work, but also it saves me a lot of money on petrol, and I really like the company in the car, and I've got two good friends out of it.
Companies are also launching into car sharing. The Bank of Ireland group in Bristol doesn't provide free parking for all its employees, but does for those who make the effort. A person can save around €1,000 per year on parking fees like this. For citizens who prefer to take their bikes, there's a big central shed with a shop and a cafe and repair service. Riders can leave their transport gear here and freshen up in the showers before clocking in. These are paying services. Carpool lanes at rush hour times and toll schemes to get into the downtown area are also aimed at keeping down fine particle levels and other pollution. In contrast, say the Greens' Hiltrud Breyer, the EU's future law simply doesn't hold the road at all.
I'm afraid that European air quality policy will end up just as a trapeze act, because this future directive is nothing but an invitation not to act. Especially since we know we could save the lives of some 350,000 people in the EU every year with a good air quality policy. Is that much more disappointing?
Dann ist es natürlich vor diesem Hintergrund ganz besonders enttäuschend.
Better air? Don't hold your breath, critics say. Everyone agrees on the goal, but not on how to get there.